Hi everyone, welcome to this week's Admiration. You'll see that I am joined again by Katie Sweet, who looks after content here at Zappi. Hi Katie.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's nice. And we're looking at a US ad this week from a campaign that I think most of us are familiar with. So it's a great time for you to join me on this. So this week we looked at Welcome Aboard the Hungry Skies by Snickers. We looked at it in the US, and obviously it's part of the You're Not You When You're Hungry campaign. Shall we jump straight in and have a look at the ad?
Definitely.
I know it's not easy dealing with us.
We refuse to pay for overweight bags.
Treat our seat like a personal spa. Ow!
We make sure that everyone knows that we're serious business people.
We bring our emotional support snakes.
And act like the plane is our yoga studio.
Oh, I fired him. We'll circle back.
No, he didn't.
Snickers?
Get me all that watching.
Sorry.
Oh my goodness. I think you'd have to be a saint to have a job of working on an aeroplane like that.
Yeah, I can't imagine. That ad is so funny. It just makes me chuckle every time I watch it.
It does. It made me laugh too. Let's have a look at what everyone else thought about it.
Yeah.
We'll start where we usually do, which is just an overview of how people have responded to the ad. So you can see exceptional scores here. So in the top 5% of all ads we've researched in terms of driving the short-term sales impact, but also huge potential to drive long-term equity for the brand, which I guess is what you'd expect from a consistently running campaign like this. I think there's a few bits to call out here, especially. So distinctiveness of the ad is like sky high. It's like, really up there with one of the best ads. And that's important, right? Because that's what helps grab attention and it helps break through in that kind of clutter. But also down here, you can see overall emotion is really high. But even further down, you can see also that it really encourages people to want to, try the Snickers brand or try it again, which I think is hugely powerful. And the other bit, just maybe to point out, is the kind of relevance. So relevance is high, brand meet needs, enjoyment. These are all measures of kind of resonance with the brand and the story and how it's told, which I think comes right back to the fact that it's grounded in such a true insight around the fact that we all behave in weird ways when we're hungry, and also, executed really well.
Yeah, and hugely relatable with the airplane stories. Everybody has a story of somebody acting wild on a plane. So I think we can all relate to that.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of that, but you're right. I've got to go on a plane next week, and I'll already dread to see what is behavior that is completely weird that winds me up next week.
Totally. That emotion looks really cool. Can we get into a little bit of what specific emotions people are feeling throughout the ad?
Yeah, we can. Let's go and have a look. Probably let's have a look at the emotions people are feeling, but let's have a look at how they feel moment by moment to see if there's particular peaks of emotion or if it's just steady throughout. Now I've already looked at this, and I happen to know that there wasn't very many of these emotions, so we'll focus on the ones that we know were felt a lot more during the ad. So you can see there's a lot of wobbly lines there. That's actually a good thing in this case, because it basically means that they're telling a story in such a way that it's making people feel things at different moments. And I think there's a few interesting bits to point out. So that pink line is the laughter line, and you can effectively see that you get a peak every time you introduce someone else with their, I guess, quirky behavior on the plane, right at the beginning. And then you can see this orange bit here, that's surprise. I'm not sure if you could guess where the surprise comes from in the video.
Hmm.
It's the snake. The
Oh,
snake.
I was gonna say maybe the guy doing the yoga, because that just looked deeply uncomfortable in that plane seat. But yeah,
Yeah. You
makes sense.
You can imagine. And then you see that we get this really big peak of emotion here, where you can see that people are, really laughing out loud. But I think what's really nice is you then see the purple take over. So at the point that the brand becomes the hero, you can see love ticking up. You can see that people love Snickers. They love the fact that it genuinely solves the challenges around the fact that all of our behavior is a bit odd when we're hungry. And then you would expect the ad to kind of just fall away, but actually we know that it really matters that you have a peak in emotion, but also that you leave people feeling really positive at the end of the ad. And it's quite nice because there's this little peak in laughter and love related to going back to the older lady at the end, who obviously of course is attached to her chair, having a particularly difficult behavior, and that makes people feel both love and laughter. I guess it's funny, but also she's kind of like, oh sorry, which also like is quite endearing towards her, right? That she didn't mean to behave like that and it's all resolved now. So a great ad. We saw it was relatable. It's grounded in a fantastic insight, and then it's executed to perfection with love and laughter, which are two of the most powerful emotions that you'd want to generate in an ad, and make sure that that journey is, moving throughout. It's not all at the beginning or all at the end. It's actually something that can keep people engaged throughout.
Yeah, this is so cool to see. And obviously this campaign is iconic. Can we call it an iconic campaign?
I think we can.
Yeah, so so resonant for me. When I was learning about advertising generally and somebody was teaching me like what a big idea is, this was the campaign that they used as an example, because it just like it makes sense. You can really wrap your brain around that this is the idea based on an insight. And they execute it so well over so many years. Can we compare a little bit to just anything else in the campaign over the years?
Yeah, we can. The best one to compare to is probably having a look at the very first one, which, right, was from the Super Bowl. I think it was called The Game, and it featured Betty White, right? That seems like a good one to go right back to. Was that
Probably my
2010?
favorite from the campaign. Can't be beat.
Yeah, I guess it was the one that established it all, and in such a clever way. So here we're looking at them side by side, and I guess that's the other thing. Like when you really think about what a truly great, long-lasting creative platform is, it's grounded in the same insight, of course, but a big part of it is how it should make you feel. And you can see like consistency here, like really high emotion from both ads within the campaign, the very first one and then this one, 14 years later, still creating that same emotion. And you can see the two dominant emotions again. You've got love coming through strongly for both, and you've got laughter coming through strongly for both, and you've got very little negativity, if any at all. And importantly, you've got virtually no one who doesn't feel anything, which would be the worst. So complete consistency in terms of how they make you feel. Perhaps this one's got a little bit more laughter. That was the very first one that you loved from the campaign, and slightly less love, but both exceptionally present. And this one, the love's up there a little bit more than the laughter, but more or less you can just see that they're both exceptional ads, both following certain elements of the same formula and yet executed so differently that they would never feel dull.
Oh yeah. 14 years later, they're still doing similar things, but feels totally different. This is absolutely nothing like the Betty White one. That makes me laugh all the time. You're playing like Betty White out there. She's a national treasure.
Yeah, and there were so many other funny, like the other funny ones that followed that were like, again, like people behaving as divas. If you remember, that worked in the
Do,
campaign. Like
yes.
that was great.
That
And we
was
had like different.
Liza Minnelli and Aretha Franklin, I think, was in that one. Those are good.
Yeah, there was a whole load of those ones, and then we had like different celebrities in different countries. It's a truly global platform. So there was one in Australia that used the guy who was really famous from Home and Away, and that was more related to the Betty White one because it was showing him being not capable of doing things and then realizing he was just hungry and then coming to life again. And there was different local celebrities used, like in India, like basically all around the world, they found a way of executing it to be part of the same platform, but really executed for that local resonance. And And maybe we could just dive into that a little bit more in terms of actually what are those kind of characteristics that make it really successful. And I think we probably could have gone on a lot more here, right, Katie? So we just tried to make it 5, or we'd have been here for the rest of the day. But we talked about this one a little bit, but it's truly grounded in a universal consumer insight. What do we mean by that? Like, everyone can relate to the idea that when you're hungry, like, you do start to behave in a bit of a weird way. Everyone has their own version of weird, as we've just seen in that video, but everyone behaves a bit weird or a bit agitated or a bit frustrated or whatever it is. And that really is universal. That wasn't an insight that relates to one market, right? We've just talked about that insight really allowed them to build a global platform, which is super powerful.
Yeah.
I guess the second one is, it's all very well having a consumer insight, but if that doesn't relate to your product, then it becomes a little bit harder to own, right? And I think what's so great about this is that insight about not being yourself when you're hungry really relates to a problem that their product can solve. Now, of course, lots of products could solve that problem, but this one does solve it, and it solves it particularly because people believe that, you know, it's got nuts in it, they're really filling. Like, even the product properties really fit beautifully with that insight around, you know, really satisfying hunger, but just said in a way more engaging way. So get your consumer insight, make sure that it relates to something related to your product truth. It makes it a lot easier for it to flourish. Then make sure that the platform's big enough, right? I've called it a fertile territory for creative, but it it truly, if it truly can be that big, it means it can work across media, it means it can work across geographies. And the more constraints you put on that creative platform, the harder it is to give it that longevity over the years. But I think this one is beautiful because I guess when you think about the real platform here, what we're really saying is it should always include out of character behavior that's being driven by hunger. It should always include humor. They all include humor. I've never seen one without. It should be locally resonant. So choose scenarios and choose people that work for those countries. And Snickers should always be the hero who solves the problem. Like, with just saying that, it gives that consistency, but enables them to really, really be fresh again and again across markets, across media, across geography. So a super great example there. Really, really, really nail down what it is that's going to make it work everywhere, but not so much that you reduce that creative freedom.
Yeah, it's not constrained at all. That's a broad enough thing that you can take that in so many different directions, but still cohesive enough that it feels like it's part of the same thing, right?
Yeah, you got that spot on. Fresh consistency, cohesion. It needs to feel cohesive, but it also needs to be interesting enough and not too repetitive or not the same every time. And that's how it'll be effective. Broad appeal's an interesting one here. Obviously, for a brand like them and all the stuff we talk about, you know, with Ehrenberg Bass and Byron Sharp, and it's important to have that mass appeal, really. And it's interesting, particularly for this brand, because it was different in different markets, but it had gone down a very masculine route as if the brand was only for men. It then moved in the direction through this campaign where, yes, it featured men in various scenarios to begin with. It was more to do with like locker rooms and sport and male sport, but still in a way that really resonated with women. It wasn't to exclude women, it was very much to include them. And then it's evolved again, because if you look at this most recent campaign, it really does have complete broad appeal. You know, you're able to reflect different characters, different genders, different age groups, different characters, different behaviors on the plane, and really bring that broad appeal to life. So again, that's super important. And the last one, which might sound a bit odd, but I think it's worth calling out for people, it becomes owned through longevity, right? No one else can do this now. When they launched that very first ad, someone else could have done that, but they didn't. They found the insight first. It was relevant to their product. They created a great execution that immediately associated them with it. And then they carried on over time. And now there's absolutely no way that that could be any other brand but Snickers that would, you know, produce the ad that we've just seen, or produce any of the ads that we've looked at over the years.
Totally. You just made the point that, you know, there are many other products that can satisfy hunger. Snickers doesn't have a lock on that exclusively, so anybody could have claimed that. But they've done it for so long that you're right, it's solely owned by them and this execution of it. It's very cool.
Yeah, make your first one so good that everyone remembers it and immediately attaches it to your brand. And then after that, just keep doing it, you know, in a fresh way. And then you really can own that and own that area and own all of that laughter and love that comes with it and makes your brand really successful. And I mean, massive congratulations to everyone involved. There'll be a lot of people involved in that campaign over 14 years, but it really has created brand growth year on year, geography by geography. I think they said in 56 out of 58 markets or something ridiculous, there was growth, and it was absolutely huge, and they continue to do that. So just a fantastic example that I guess we're reflecting on as a whole, but also the most recent ad kind of it keeps that going, and it's still, you know, they're still doing it really, really well, and that should be celebrated because we're all too keen to move on too quickly from something that people actually love.
Oh yeah, sticking with something for 14 years is definitely something to celebrate because all the different people who would have changed throughout Snickers at that time, like being willing to stick with something for that long is not easy in business, but it's worth doing, as you said.
Spot on, spot on. Okay, thanks, Katie.
Yeah,
Thanks for
thank
joining
you
me
so much for
today.
having me.
A pleasure. And we'll be back. I think in a couple of weeks. I don't think we'll have a video next week. We'll be back in a couple of weeks after some well-earned rest. Thank you, Katie.